Hello, everybody. Pastor was down and 3 of their kids, and oh, it was so fun. We had a really, really enlightening discussion, and the kids, they were out here swinging on the swing most of the time, or watching Scooby-Doo. And anyway, yeah, we had quite the discussion, and we talked about some things that each of us needed to kind of get some prayer about, or some praises that some things had changed over time. And so I think we just have to keep remembering to pray and to be thankful for when things do go right. They do a lot of the time. There. We all have our weaknesses, and those are the things that we need to watch out for. Mine, well, I've got a lot of them, but one of my worst is I tend to have a controlling nature. So I think I have given quite a bit of that up since all this, kind of because I've had to. It took me a while to come to terms with it, but I did. And now I'm trying to slowly reinsert myself into chores and things. Not like major stuff, but like folding clothes, and even standing up to fold them, because that helps my back if I don't do it too long. And I haven't done this, well, I haven't done it this week, but sometimes I will start the dishes soaking, and if there's not too many, I might try washing if you haven't really tried lately. But if I'm standing for too long and I haven't had that relaxer to help me stand up straight for any length of time. But I think it's getting a little stronger. But mornings, I absolutely have to have that Flexeril, because I'm standing bent. I'm looking at my knees. It's called age. My grandfather, one of my grandfathers he was bow-legged, and he had rheumatoid arthritis, I think, or at least that's what they called it. They called it rheumatism. But he had a kind of arthritis, and over years he went from like about 6 foot tall down to about here on me, just from his legs bowing more. And he had been bow-legged as a child, and stuff. But I'm, born back in the early 1900s, they didn't have a whole lot of. And he was a very active. He liked being hands-on with things. He did some farming, and he had done. He ran the grader, the main road maintainer is what a lot of people call it. Anyway, my grandma, that was my grandpa Eakin. My grandma Eakin, I don't think she could have gotten shorter. I mean, she was always under 5 foot. And I think she was about 5'11", or 4'11", sorry, 4'11". And I don't know if she ever dropped down to like 410 or anything. She just didn't have that far to go down. And pictures of her and Grandpa, you know, when they were a lot younger. You know, when he was still most of his 6 feet, and she was, and it's like it's like this. But you never they loved each other deeply, and they loved to argue. Well, let's put it this way. Grandpa knew how to push her buttons. And he would push them intentionally, and he would, but there was never anything like really bad or terrible, but there were some things where she could just be a little bit unreasonable. He used to do driver's ed with kids, and so he had the driver's ed car, and it had, you know, the wheel on, the extra steering wheel and the extra brakes and stuff on. And Grandma would always sit up front in the passenger seat, and that's where that stuff was. And she would start hitting the clutch of the brake when Grandpa was trying to get somewhere. And he'd get so irritated because she was real fearful. I'm surprised she could even reach him, as short as she was. But she never learned how to drive that I know. She didn't want to. But she just, I don't know. Finally, he just quit using that car. And then all he had to do is listen to her. I think he learned to tune her out. They were so cute, though. And their faith was so strong. Gardeners, oh man. When they moved to Blue Rapids, where I grew up, they had been down in, southwest of Topeka a little bit. Not too bad. A little town named Rossville. And before that, Delia, which wasn't far from Rossville. And Grandpa had run the water plant there for a long time. But now I don't know where. He had himself a mechanic shop for a while, and oh golly, he did all kinds of stuff. But when they moved to Blue Rapids, to be near us, near Mom, they bought 2 lots. Now, by that time, they had bought this old mobile home. It was really, that thing was built like it could withstand almost anything, because it just was really built. And Grandpa put a basement under it, and he added on a room or 2, so it was more like a mobile home attached to a house. I don't know. But yeah, they did a lot of canning, because the one lot was across the street. It was an entire garden. And the other one, their lot that they lived on, and they're pretty good sized lots. And the lot they lived on, Grandpa had built a garage, a single garage, and it didn't make Grandma happy that he was climbing around, but you couldn't stop him. Anyway, but the back half of it was garden. And I think, well, if I remember, because I don't know, but I know that they sold a lot to the grocery stores, and I don't know if there was an actual farmer's market back then, but you know, they had a lot of people buying veggies from them and stuff. But even then, if Grandma could do it, she'd be out hunting the herbs, the wild herbs, and lamb's quarter, and watercress in the wild. Mushrooms. Because she knew them all. Because she came from Missouri and she did foraging there a lot of the time. But Grandpa would not be healthy and just could not live without his lamb's quarter and watercress. That was her idea, not his. And my other grandparents, well, he was tall, and he kept most of his height. And Grandma was at average height. I think she was probably 5'3", 5'4", something like that. And I think they both kept most of their height. And both grandmothers were absolutely wonderful cooks. My grandma Ekin, my mother's mother, she was more of, like I said, the foraging cook, and the everything was tasted awesome. But she would, for a treat, she would use Jell-O with applesauce and Red Hots. And oh, that was good. I think it was usually cherry or else strawberry Jell-O. And she couldn't be beat on a lot of the stuff that she made. But neither could my Grandma Miller. And Grandma Miller would make more, I don't know, it was still good old country cooking, but she was very proper about things, and we had to learn to set the table correctly with her. She was teaching us since we were little, because they farmed about half a mile up the road from us. And from the time we were little, and Mom was too, when we got in high school, junior high and high school, home ec, which was a thing that back then, everything you had to learn, how to host, everything. I'm probably going to go over time and have to cut a bunch of this out. But Grandpa Miller, he did like to tease Grandma Miller too. But she knew pretty much how to ignore him. Once in a while, she'd say, Paul, like he would tease us kids. And once in a while, she'd say, Paul, leave those kids alone. Why, I don't know. Maybe we were getting loud, probably. And but it was fun to be out in the field with Dad and Grandpa, or out working with the animals with them. And with Grandma, it was fun to be in the house, just learning her grace, her kind of grace that she had. And she was a worker. Don't get me wrong, she was a worker, and they gardened too. I don't know where I got my black thumbs, brown, whatever you call them, because now Joe's been able to succeed at some gardening here in the last couple of years using a bucket garden. Maybe I just never had great soil. I don't know. We were on an acreage for a couple of years, and I actually had some stuff growing, and then a bunch of cows got out and ran right down through the whole thing. I will see you. Good night. Smile and wave.